Okay, so as I say numerous times in the video, what happens here with this work was I installed the inside brake pad around the wrong way. Yes, I'm disappointed in myself. I haven't made a mistake like this as long as I can remember, this serious. This video shows the benefit of taking your vehicle for a test drive, a safe test drive, slowly on a level surface. The symptoms of installing the brake pads around the wrong way is you won't be able to get brake pressure. So you finish the job, you've got brake fluid in the system, there's no air, but when you press the pedal in, it'll keep sinking to the floor, and over time, if you do get brake pressure, you'll lose it again. Another symptom is you'll be going along the road doing your test drive and you'll hear a metallic type of scraping noise. I've put this video up for the benefit of others to show the symptoms of putting the brake pad in the wrong way, and just to bring general knowledge of just how easily it is. I don't think that a brake system should be allowed where it's possible to put a brake pad in around the wrong way. It's a very serious thing. Okay, so yeah, let my mistake be your benefit. Okay, so I'm driving home from work on a Friday night. It's dark and all of a sudden the car starts shuddering. And I think it could be the road, but then it's a new road. It was just going like that, or feel a bit faster, sort of like that. I pulled over. I smelt, you know, it could have been like a clutch or a brake smell. Just here at that tyre there. So I think, okay, I'll get on my way, nothing else happens. And then today I'm doing about 90 kilometers an hour, same thing. I pull over, have a look, same thing, smell coming from that side of the car. The symptoms, well, the only other thing apart from a smell is I can feel sort of on the inside here, I can feel a dip and a trough, like a trough and a high and a low point, and I can feel a low and a high point. So as I run my hand over the tyre on the inside there, the worn part, I can feel a sort of a slightly high and a low point. Actually, come to think of it, it's worn on either side, but the middle has plenty of tread. On the other side of the car now, the tyre has it's a bit worn on the outside here. On the inside, it's got a fair amount of tread. The plan of action is to rotate the tyres, so get this tyre, put it on the back on the opposite side, and this tyre, and put it on the back there. At this point, I'm thinking that the clutch or the brake smell could be some type of tyre rubber smell, the tyre warming up, the tyre skipping or skidding or hitting a high spot. You know, the timing between this tyre and the other one. We'll find out. Okay, so for my own information, this tyre is worn on the outside and the inside's good. This tyre is worn on either side, like the outside and the inside, and the middle of it's still good, but it's pumped up to about 50. I'll find out. This tyre's pumped up to 47, 48. I think 60 is recommended. Yeah, as I say, it's worn on either side, the middle's still good. Yeah, this is actually recommended 65 psi, and it's 47, 48 psi. So it is actually underinflated, and as I say, the middle's still good. This one on this side is 50 psi, and as I say, it's supposed to be 65 psi. So that could explain the outside wearing
and the middle knot. Yeah, as I say, if it was overinflated, the middle would be worn. I do the air pressure at the fuel stations, and it only goes up to 50 psi. To get 60 psi or 65 psi, I'd have to go and purchase my own pump or air compressor. Okay, I'll get these tyres rotated, and then I'll try and find a way to pump it up to 65 psi. Okay, most importantly, I'm using a threaded jack, not a hydraulic jack. This is a threaded jack. When you turn this, and you get your car to rise like so. The wheels I'm not working on are chocked with bricks. I noticed that the caliper is fairly hard to turn. Okay, so when I spin this disc on the other side, it's free. So it looks like the disc is binding on the brake pads on the other side. Okay, it's the next morning. The tyres are rotated. We've worked out that we've got a binding caliper on the disc on this wheel here. See that there's a bit of resistance there. The brakes aren't fully off. Seems like at this point the brakes are binding and overheating the disc, expanding the disc, and probably just making the because the caliper's not releasing, it's creating heat and binding, and just make a shuddering effect when as the brakes bind on the disc. Okay, at this stage you can force the piston back in to allow this to be removed. You've got a hole there, and you just stick it in. You can see the piston in there. Maybe you can just see it there. And just put the screwdriver in and just force it back. That'll allow the assembly to be removed. At this point, I'd just like to say I'm not a mechanic or an auto electrician or a brake specialist. I'm just somebody trying to fix up my car. So with that said, I'll move on. Okay, at this point I can say, if you run into trouble when you've got this off, because you might be able to see the piston there, that's the piston there, so you won't be able to get it back on, so this piston's exposed. So then you can get your screwdriver and just get in there, and you'll be able to drive that piston back. Another thing, this could pop out, and then that'll jam there. You won't be able to get it back on, so you just get it, push it back in, and it should be good. as we can see, it's much more free. Spins much better. So it's looking at this point like it needs a new caliper. Okay, so with the caliper up, we can see that that's completely free. So that's a good sign. Okay, I'll do a caliper test. It's free now, and then I'll go and apply the brakes, and it should be tight. So yeah, that's very tight. Okay, so now we go around the other side, and we see that it's good. So that's the symptoms of a sticking brake caliper. You'll be driving along and there'll be shuddering along the front of your car, vibrations and wobbling. Not so much wobbling, but a jolting feeling or handling. Yeah, I didn't expect that to be a sticking brake caliper, but it does explain the smell, the brake lining smell that came from the car at the time. So now I'll go and order a new brake caliper. Hopefully I can get to work for 1 or 2 weeks. Other than that, going to work and back, I'm off the road. Another possible symptom is I noticed throughout the weeks, every now and then when I braked, the car would move sideways, but the opposite way to the right, not to the sticking caliper. That's a possible cause or symptom. Could also be the gradient, the way I came into the corner. Maybe my steering wheel was a bit off, but that's something to bear in mind. Okay, so here's the new brake caliper, $138, halfway through 2016, from Oz Parts Overstock. I don't have the spare time to renew the caliper or put a a rebuild kit through the caliper, so I've just gone out and bought a new one. Okay, it's the next weekend. We've got the new caliper, and I'll start to install it now. That's the piston there. That's the hose attachment, and that's the bleeder valve. First thing I notice is it doesn't come with the banjo bolt. There's no banjo bolt for the brake line, and also the brake pad guides that sit in here, it doesn't come with them either. First thing I'm going to do is just loosen the caliper bolts. These two bolts on the other side there. It's pretty dark, I don't know if it's going to show up, but it's like that's the front, and coming around the back it's those two bolts there. So I'm just using a torque wrench as a breaker bar. That's a 22mm socket. I don't know if I've mentioned that before. Don't forget to just check the comments section underneath the video. Anything that's not right or anything I've got to add will be found underneath this video. I noticed this caliper isn't the stock standard caliper. You may be able to just see the purple writing there. I'd say that's been sold second hand and put on the truck. Yeah, and it says LHF, left hand front, TF. TF's the model of the truck. Yeah, so surprise, surprise, no wonder it doesn't work. So these bolts behind the caliper also hold the brake line, so just undo them now. The threads, they go on the inside of the outside bracket. Nearly got it. Just got to line up the hole. There we go. I'll just snug them up for now and torque them down later. Okay, now this is a very, very, very important part of the job. Now, when you put the brake line on, there's two sort of dividing marks, or two high marks. The line has to go in between these two marks there. So there's sort of a guide either side of the line. That's one side there, and that's the other side there. And this line has to sit in between those two slots. As you're doing up the bolt, you need to move this from side to side, the line, as you're tightening the bolt. Otherwise you'll tighten the bolt and it won't be tight enough, because it can catch on this lip either side. If it's not flush with the caliper, as you're going down the road you will lose brake pressure. So this needs to be carefully situated flush with the caliper. It needs to be slightly loose in between these two line-up marks, metal bits, before you tighten up the bolt. Then you tighten up the bolt and it should be there shouldn't be any movement at all. This is a very important part of the job. Needs to be done properly. Otherwise, if it's not flush with the caliper and the bolt torque changes, if it loosens up, the brake oil or the brake fluid will spray out of here, and your foot will sink to the floor and you won't have any brakes. That is to say that the brake pedal will sink to the full extent, or down to the floor, because the brake fluid's escaping here. So this needs to be done properly, and it needs to be torqued to the correct torque setting with a torque wrench. I strongly recommend when you tighten this bolt, take it for a test drive first. Don't go down any hills, and you know, if that stands up to it, test the torque setting, make sure it's still the same. Then the first time you go to work, when you come back, also test the torque setting to see if it's changed or not. Okay, I believe this could possibly be a floating caliper. So I can see my brake pads are still fairly good. The thinnest point is here. That's the thinnest point. And that's on the right hand side. Okay, so that might give you a better idea of where the brake line meets up with the caliper. That's where the washer goes, and the banjo bolt goes down that way, and that's your you put your brake line caliper through that hole there, in between these the two high points there. I did try and put some brake fluid in this in the caliper before I put the line on. However, it wouldn't take any brake fluid at all. So I'll have to bleed. That's the bleed screw there. I'll have to bleed the air out of the system. While it's on my mind, I'll just say this: if you're going to take on this job, do your own homework. Do not rely on this video for fitting your own brakes. Make sure you know exactly what's got to be done. Think it through, think ahead. You have to torque down, especially, this is crucial. Your life depends on this connection here. This has to be tightened or torqued down to the correct torque settings, and also the bolts behind here. If you do decide to take this job on, or if you have to because of financial reasons, once you've done the work, take the car for a test drive on level ground and recheck the torque setting on this 3 times. Once when you install it, once when you take it for a test drive, and the day after work. (110 foot-pounds). 110 foot-pounds. Whenever you use a torque wrench, go up in increments. Go up, say 25, 50, 75, 100, 110, just to make sure, just to judge you're not putting too much pressure on your bolts. Just to make sure you're not going to, crack a thread or a bolt or whatever, and don't get inch-pounds mixed up. Okay, the brake line bolt. Okay, I've got 22 to 29 foot-pounds, and I'm going to tighten it now to 29 foot-pounds. (27 foot-pounds). 27 foot-pounds for the lock bolt. If you're using your torque wrench and you think you're placing too much pressure, just wind it back, start going up in increments again, just to make sure that everything's working good. Okay, so at the moment the brake pad's in, the job's finished. It's still floating, as you can see. The piston has to come out, so I'll go and put my foot on the brake pedal now. I'll have to bleed the air out of the caliper, so I'll go and see what happens.
Okay, at this point, one brake pad, the inside brake pad, is turned around the wrong way. Okay, that looks good, and I've got pressure at the brake pedal. Put your foot on the brake, take it off. Put your foot on the brake, take it off,
Put your foot on the brake. Take it off. Okay. Okay, so that's it. There was hardly any air in the line, so just a matter of getting a very small amount out, or at least allowing the fluid in, and it's tight, and that's the amount of drag I've got. So that's it. I'll take it for a test drive. I'll keep on testing the torque on the brake line, and if this video's uploaded, that means the work was a success. Don't forget to check under the video for any annotations or comments. Okay, so the caliper bolts around the back of the actual caliper, the big bolts, 110 foot-pounds. The brake line hose fitting is 22 to 29 foot-pounds, and the lock bolt 20 to 27 foot-pounds, but this is just what I could find, and I'm not 100% sure if it was related to this particular caliper. Oh no, hang on, I got these from the manual for this car. Alright, be careful. Oh, the lock bolt was 20 to 27 foot-pounds. The lock bolt, the small bolt underneath the removable part holding the brake pads. I'll just add that after 15 minutes I came out and there was no pressure at the brake pedal. What I did was I took the cap off the brake reservoir. So I took the cap off and I bled the brakes again. No air came out, but after another 15 minutes it's all good. Okay, this is an update after 2 hours. I did lose brake pressure again. What I did was just take the cap off. I've had the cap off for a while. I pumped the brakes, I got pressure again, and after about 1 hour I've still got brake pressure, so it looks like, you know, it could be fixed. Okay, I better just document this. I've taken it for a drive. There's a metal scraping sound, and there's little metal filings all up around here. And there's some metal, very small bits of metal on the caliper. Okay, I'm only human. What I've done is I've put this in around the wrong way. I am disappointed in myself, but I thought I'd put this up because it can easily happen. It's surprising how easily you can put a brake pad around the wrong way. So I'm going to put this up for education purposes. That's why you always take a car for a short drive, a safe drive, before you take it out on the open road, because it's very easily done. Okay, so they're around the right way. We can now see that the brake pad material is on the inside and the metal part is on the outside. I know some people will see this and complain and you know, write a message like I don't know what I'm talking about. In my defence, I had a Toyota Hilux. You couldn't put the brake pads in the wrong way. I'm very surprised that anybody would design a product where the brake pads can be installed the wrong way around with the metal facing the disc. That to me is a poor design. Yes, I didn't look for it myself, or I didn't see it, but I'm surprised that you're able to put them in around the wrong way. Okay, I've cleaned any metal from around the disc, the brake area. The back of the disc luckily isn't too damaged. It's fairly smooth, so I'll put it back together and take it for another test drive. So yeah, when you're doing this job, it's easier to put the disc pads, the brake pads, in back to front. So don't forget to put the brake pads in the right way. Okay, so yeah, beautiful. The brakes are there straight away. Brakes are good and smooth. I can recommend that caliper. Yeah, she's all good. Just don't forget to you know, put your brake pads in the right way. Don't put them with the metal facing the disc. That's easy to do, and she's all good. One thing where you can get caught out is if you've got this bolt out, you might try and slide that hole onto the shaft. This can be removed off the caliper frame, and you'll notice those two holes are similar. That's the correct one, and if you're having trouble getting this on the frame, then that's what you're doing. You're using that hole there instead of that hole. All I've got to do is pack up all this gear here, and that's my tool set there, and pack it up and call it a day.